Well, just a couple things, housekeeping items. First of all, hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving and great time of the year. We traveled over to Kennewick this year, where my grandson is a sales manager for Les Schwab. So if you see me wearing some Les Schwab clothing, he keeps throwing it my way. I got a closet full. I can't tell him to stop because it's nice stuff. And anyway, he's doing really well. And we're expecting our number six great-grandchildren.
Wow.
I never knew, I didn't think I'd live this long. The oldest great-grandchild is going to be 9 coming up. So, I don't know. Growing old has some advantages. My father didn't enjoy any of them. He dropped dead at 62. So, always going to retire next year. So. Anyway, we're going to move through DeLynn Culvert's positional theory of 26 tonight. And we'll see where we get next week. And then I'll leave it up to you whether we come back on the 12th or we wrap it up next week. Kind of be thinking about it. If we do an extra week, it would be just kind of a overview of everything we've been through. So that's up to you. I'm amenable, however you decide. Okay. Well, you know, I'm going to start with a little discussion about my hat. An S on the end. There are some folks around that looked at these videos that were made in 7 years ago, 2010, and they have a memory of the hats I was wearing at that time. Well, most of them are worn out, thrown in the garbage, so I've got a whole new series of hats. So people are assuming that I got a closet with nothing but hats, because they've seen 18 different ones. So I got 2 or 3 emails and 1 phone call asking me just how many hats I own. Well, it's a huge number. And I'm not going to display all of them here. And I do, this here is a particularly beautiful hat. All hand knit. Ooh, it would cause you to survive in the Arctic Circle without nothing on but a hat. Because it really generates some heat. Well, you know, I think I want somebody to notice that I'm not wearing a hat tonight. It's a winter hat, and this room is far warmer than winter. So I'm just going to toss it over there. And I do carry a comb in my back pocket. So, but you see what you're stuck with now. I'll probably get 2 or 3 emails say, put on the hat. Anyway, glad you're here. And I want to start, you've heard me mention X-ray vision, logic a little bit. I want to give you a little demo because it does require you to be acute, tuned in. And in this game, my opponents should be playing defense. They got a 14-point lead in the game. Shouldn't be taking any risk on the pegs. And they lead a queen. What do I think? They're leading a queen. They should be playing defense. Well, they don't have a 3 and a deuce. They don't have a 1 and a 4. Why would they be leading a queen? Because they don't have those other cards. Okay? So I've already made some assumptions about the composition of their hand, seeing 1 card relative to the position on the board. Now, I'm holding a 3, 4, 5, 6. And I need, so I put the 5 on the queen for 15. Well, it doesn't get paired. That's what I was hoping. It goes to 25. You've been there. Played the 6 for 31. Now we both got 2 cards. I got a 3 and a 4. And they play, this is their lead this time. Now I got a 3 and a 4. What is the one small card they might have with 3 10-pointers that they couldn't have played earlier?
An ace.
An ace, exactly. You can't lead an ace with 3 10-point cards. So I got a choice of playing a 3 or a 4 on their 10 lead. Play the 3. You see? I saved those 2 pegs too. So I got 2, 4, 5 pegs and didn't give up any. And that's just using a little logic and it worked. But you need to think about what they might have as well as what they might not have. And of the small cards, the only one I decided that they could have would be the 1. So I make the count 13, save 2 pegs. Anyway, you'll be surprised if you start looking at this, how close you can come on figuring out a lot of cards. Now, it's true that there are some folks that are going to show you this one right off the bat when they got these 3. But you know, that's not a good thing to do. So if you're playing position often is a clue to whether the person should be playing defense, offense, or what did you call it? Neutral gear, in neutral gear. Optimal, Hal Mueller calls it optimal in his cribbage tutorial. Optimal offense, optimal defense. So anyway, we're going to get into, most of you got some that showed what the average size cribs are, what the average size hands are for dealer, non-dealer, so on. I'm going to review a little of that here first because some of you weren't here last week. The theory of 26 is something that Lynn Calvert, probably the world's greatest cribbage player, designed several years ago. His first book was printed in 1980, and he revolutionized cribbage playing. Most all successful players today acknowledge that the most important thing they learned about cribbage is to play position. And his theory of 26 has been the standard. There have been some other approaches developed, including one I've developed, but as a skeletal support, they all rely on the theory of 26. So, and here are the basic premises. How games are decided. I know you'll hear people all the time say that we played a game and it got over in 4 or 5 deals. Well, I never saw one. The Lynn Culver does say he saw one 5-hand, 5-deal game. And I've never seen one. Over 90% of all the games end in 8, 9, or 10 deals. It doesn't make any difference if you're 16 holes after 3 deals. Somehow the pace picks up and you end up in 9, 10. A few games go to 11. Very few go over 11, and very few are under 8. But the dealer wins high percentage of those games. On the 9th deal, if you remember that bar on that graph, the dealer wins a whole lot more than the non-dealer. The only place the non-dealer makes it close is on 8 deals. So the key then is that the non-dealer play offense from the get-go, not wait till 4th Street. You hear people say, well, I got a lot of time in this game. No, you don't. It's a lot easier to pick up some points on 1st Street than it is on 4th Street. And so it's important for the non-dealer to go all out for it. Don't worry about your discard to the dealer's crib on the first hand. You might reach the point where you're going to play total defense later in the game. First hand of the game, go for it. That means if you got 4, 4, 5, 6 with a 7, 8, you play the 4, 4, 5, 6 and throw the 7, 8 to their crib. You got 12, chance to cut 24. If you cut a 6, you might end up having a 24 hand and a 24 crib on the other side of the board. But you can't play defense, and you present your cards in a way that you can peg as well. You try to entice the play. You play on the dealer's cards, trying to get him in a tight spot where you pick up a runner too. So, and the dealer needs to be doing just the opposite. He's slowing the game down. Knows if he can get it to deal 9 or deal 10, his chances of winning are very high. Hey, people all the time say, what advantage is there to dealing? I win 51% of my games if I'm not the dealer of hand 1. I win 67% of my games if I'm the dealer of hand 1. I've asked Wayne Toll, I've asked Lynn Culvert, I've asked many other players, and that number is always between 15 and 17. They just barely break 50%, and they're over 2/3 wins when they have the opening deal. And one of the easy things to try and remember is if I deal 1, I cut the cards and win the low card for the deal on deal 1. That means I've got the deal on deal 3, deal 5, deal 7, deal 9. I got all the odd deals. And if you had the crib on deal 2, you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, however long the game goes, you got all the evens. That might help you sort things out a little as the game moves along as to where you are in relation to these. I'm going to get into these par holes on the cribbage board here that apply to the theory of 26. And of course, the Lynn's figures were that the non-dealer average is 10.2, which is 8.1 for the hand, 2.1 for the pegs. And then the dealer's average is 16.2, 7.9 for the hand, 3.5 for the pegs, and 4.8 for the crib. And why is it that the dealer's hands run smaller than the non-dealer's hands? Yeah. The dealer often gives up 2 points or more to put something good in his crib. So his hand size will run smaller. In fact, sometimes the dealer, like in a hand that includes 2 jacks, a queen, king, and 2 5s, 2 5s, 2 jacks, a queen, king, the dealer will put 2 5s in the crib and should. So he had a hand to begin with of 12. Now he's got one of 8. See, so he gave up 4 points in hand score in the crib. So that's why that's different. It's not that the cards are different, it's they're played differently, depending on whether the crib's in front of you or on the other side of the board. And I think some folks were surprised when they saw that crib, that the most common score in the crib is 2 points. If you graph on a bar graph and all of the crib scores possible from 0 to 29, the longest bar on the graph by far is 2. But yet people seem to be surprised when they get 2. The next longest bar is 4, by the way, but 2 is by far the longest bar on the graph. A pretty key question: do you know when to play on and when to play off? That simply means, do you know when to play offense and when to play defense? Some people play the game the same way all the time. The way they play it doesn't vary. And it's very important that you vary your play, not for the sake of variety. I hear people say, oh, I want to fool my opponent, so I played the hand this way this time. Position should determine how you varied your play, both in terms of your discard, the cards retained, and how you approach the pegging. Your position should determine that. You shouldn't vary it just to give your opponent a different look. The theory of 26, if you apply it fully, from hole number 1, you're playing it in your mind before you pick your peg up for the first score. You're not waiting to play this sometime later in the game. You're playing this from the beginning. Very important to play it from the beginning. Even though I hear people say all the time it doesn't make any difference until 4th Street. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. If you're one of those, you need to get out of the habit of waiting until 4th Street, because this miracle on 4th Street is going to be very elusive. And you might be able to pull it off 1 or 2. But when you get on 4th Street and you need 21 points, that's very hard to get. So it's the law of averages is why it works. It's a game of numbers, and the theory of 26 is based on the mathematical probabilities and the law of averages. Now, one thing I do want to say about position, because I tend to do this myself, and it's not really correct. You can't really determine whether you're winning or losing. I mean, in your mind you can, but what you need to think of is, do you have a position advantage or a positional disadvantage? And if you think of your position in that way, it'll come closer to making a lot of sense. I often, and some of them do it. I'll say to somebody, well, you win this game by 14 points, and they get it by 13. So, yeah, okay. So I was a point off. Oh, that's pretty close, right? The best I really know is they have a positional advantage, or I have a positional advantage. And the secret as a non-dealer, you lost the cut. You cut a king of clubs, like I do repeatedly. And you didn't expect the deal, and you didn't. So you've got to go for it, go for it, go for it. Tell yourself to be aggressive, be aggressive. If you've got a 12-point hand, don't lull yourself into thinking, well, this is really good. Go for 16 or 17. Try to grab some pegs along with the 12-point hand. And often you can destroy the dealer's advantage on the first street. But you have to be thinking aggressively offense, 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 until such time as you're satisfied with that you have a positional advantage. So you start with a big disadvantage. The dealer, these boards are marked with little circles around the hole. The first hole that's marked is 7. The reason that 7 has a little circle around it, that is all the dealer has to have on the first hand to have a 50% chance to win. What a huge advantage. The dealer only has to have 7. So don't panic when you got 6 off the first deal. Don't panic. You're almost at 50% win with 6 points. At 7 points, you're going to win half of the time. And then you'll see as we go on down, you notice this 10 and 16 theory of 26, 10, 16. That's what it is, you see, when you hear people talk of 3 counts. They're talking about 2 hands, the score of 2 hands, 1 crib, and the pegs. So, theory of 26 is 10 as the non-dealer, 16 as the dealer. And so it goes on. Before the night's out, we're actually going to play a game and review each hand that it takes to complete the game in relation to the position holes on the board. And that's what this does here. If you're going to be on average, now I'm not saying you're winning the game, but if you get the non-dealer's average, you'll have 10 points at the end of the first hand. And that means after your deal and you pick up the 16, you'll be at 26. So what happens, I show that 7-hole circle for the dealer. You actually start looking at what the dealer's position should be. The numbers are the same after that first 7. In other words, if you want to take away the dealer's advantage on hand 1, you want to have 16. Hand 1, 16 or 17. You want 16 or 17 on hand 1. And you'll not have gained advantage, but you'll be at par. See? How many in here play golf? Yeah. Well, what they establish a course score, a score for the course, and if you're on par, you're meeting the course standard for that performance in terms of, I guess, in terms of the number of balls you put near the cup or in the cup or somewhere around the mound that's near the cup, I guess. Do you have to get the ball in the cup all the time to get any credit? You have to. So it's like winning a game of cribbage, but you're doing it on each section of the course. You've got to get the ball in the game hole as we get the peg in the game hole on the cribbage board. Anyhow, I think that's where the par and non-par came from. Was there were quite a few folks in the early days that played golf and played cribbage, and I think that's what DeLynn was trying to do when he described the game in terms of par holes and non-par holes. And of course, the dealer should play defense, and we mentioned one of the classic ways of doing that, and there are many. One of the classic ways of doing that is a dealer will often hold a 5 and a 6, and if you're playing defense, you would put the 6 on a 10-point lead and play the 5 for 31. When the count gets advanced to 26, you take 31. You get 2 pegs. If you're playing offense as a dealer, some other point in the game, then, and you play an offense, you will put the 5 first. But very often what happens when you're playing offense by taking the 15 first, you just trade points with your opponent. They pair your 5, so now you're 2 and 2. But playing defense, you put the 6 on the 10 lead and then make 31 with the 5, you got 2 and gave up nothing. That's good defense. And there are other examples of that, but that 5-6 is a common one that's available in a lot of hands. Hal Mueller, I mentioned he's developed these wonderful cribbage tutorial programs. Started with Hal's Crib and then Rex Cribbage, and now the Cribbage Prof. I'm not too sure just what's happened with these programs since Windows 10, because it was very frustrating for him to try and make the changes in his program. So I don't know if he's still selling the program or not. If you have an old computer and you have a chance to get a Hal's Crib or a Ralph, you should do that, because it's the toughest opponent you'll ever face. I win about 51% of my games on 1,000 game blocks. That means I win 30 to 70 games more on 1,000 game block. Whereas with people, I win 56 or 57%, except Mr. Hornbacker sitting over here will say, well, I saw some of your scores that were in the 40s and looked like they might drop into the 30s here. The start of this season was looking pretty bleak. Well, you know, I can't give any excuses. It just is what it was. If he tells you that, he's not telling a fib. It's what was occurring. About that, if you're the dealer of the first hand, you're trying to slow the game down. If you're the non-dealer of the first hand, You're trying to speed it up. Your chances increase to win as the non-dealer if you can speed the game up. The dealer's chances increase to win if he can slow it down. Okay? That you'll see on the board, and I put the 7 on there only because that's such an advantage to the dealer of the first hand to know that all they need out of hand 1 is 7 points to have a 50% chance to win. Now, these are the non-dealer's numbers, but if you'll notice, they're exactly the same as these here. They're just one off because that don't happen on this side. That 7 don't appear over here. So all these numbers here in this row are the same as they are here, just one down. Follow that? They're marked on your board. When you come onto 4th Street, you see there, if you have the deal, you need to be a 95 or better. If 95 is good, then 98 is a lot better. In fact, if you look at what happens between 95 and 99, your chances of winning at hole 95 are not much more than 55%. But if you look at each of those adds about 7 points. If you're looking at what is it at 98, if I'm at 98, what's my percentage of winning? It's over 70% if you're 98. Just 3 points more. So the goal, and we'll see that next week when we get into position zones, the goal should not be these holes. And that's what this will do for you sometimes, is you just get thinking of those holes. Those holes are just the start of the zone. And if you know where those zones are, and you keep into the zone rather than just in the very edge of it, you increase your winning percentage along. And that's the challenge. So take a look at those boards and you'll see that that's how they're lined up, and you can see these are the deals. If the game goes according to plan, game 9, you see it, deal 8, the non-dealer is a hole 111, they need 10. The game goes according to plan, that's how it'll work. And the dealer really ends up with 2 shots to win in most games. Most games end on 9 deals, and the dealer counts out. But if it goes 10, usually the dealer just needs a point or 2. He's at the end of the board. He's running out of room. And the dealer, of course, has a pegging advantage. So the dealer is really stacked up with an advantage at the end of the game, and has had it for the entire game. And many games will go just like that. That you spend your whole game as a non-dealer trying to catch up. You're always 5 to 10 points short of where you ought to be. And that'll happen in a lot of games. Aware of it, conscious of it, and playing to overcome that shortfall early. Then you'll start moving some games that have been losses into the plus column. You all should have a paper that has 7.9, 7-9. It pretty much reviews the things that I've been talking about. You might want to take some time to look at it. Basically, it tells you dealer of the first hand slows it down, non-dealer speeds it up. Uh-oh. www.cribbage.org just bit the dust. Uh-oh. Well, get back in business here if I can. Flip chart's getting a little thin and don't want to hold it in place. Anyway, great website. Check it out. Playing tips. A lot of what we're talking about is there. And great resource. No charge for anything. No pop-up advertising. None of the things you encounter on other websites. It's just lovely. If they can't give it away, they won't bother. So, and if you see something you like, you can print it. And of course, you can do that with this material too. On Mike Sutta's Cribbage Club website is on that website. It's VashonCribbage.weebly.com. Okay. So anyway, I think if you just say Vashon Cribbage, you're there. But it's good stuff. It's all printable, and Mike doesn't get a commission. And if my philosophy's always been, if I can't give it away, why bother? So that's why I'm good at garage sales. Everybody comes expecting to get stuff free, and most of the stuff I put up for sale, I expected to give away anyway. So. Now, I think a point that we need to talk about a little bit, because we talk earlier in discarding to opponent's crib, we talk about bulking their crib. Well, that's a good thing to do if you have a positional advantage, or you may be just pretty equal in the game. That's a very good thing to do. Very often, a low scoring crib can change the position to your advantage. But on the first hand of the game, we're not worried about that. Not worried about bulking the crib. We want to keep the hand which has the greatest potential score. And there are some hands that every card helps. I think one that comes to mind is a 5, 6, 7, 9. An ace helps it, 2 helps it, 3 helps it, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, or any of the 10-point cards. Actually, there are quite a few hands like that. And you have no control over what's going to be on the deck. So if you're holding 4 cards, with the cut of any card, the total potential value of that hand is pretty good. And sometimes that hand might only be 4 points, but every card in the deck helps it. And if you can see that, there's quite a few hands like that. And sometimes, based on board position, that's a real important consideration, is that I'm holding cards that are going to be helped by anything that comes up on that deck. So look for that. And of course, you would entice the play if you had a reason, say the dealer laid a 7, and you had a card that would form a run, maybe 17 on a 10 lead, and you happen to have a 6. And I mean, it doesn't look like it would work, but you need pegs. So, I mean, it's unusual you would get a go, but you might, and then you drop your 6 in for 28 and a go, so you got 3. I mean, if you were playing to get some pegs, why not play on? I mean, don't play off. If you need pegs, then play on, play on. Try to force the dealer to give you something. So worry about the pegs that the dealer's going to get on the first hand. Worry about the ones you're going to get. So that would mean you might take a chance on a pair, and it might be that the dealer would get 6, but you wanted pegs, so you got your 2. And most of the time the dealer won't get the 6. Most of the time it won't. So you keep taking the 2 as the dealer because you need pegs and move up the board. Then if you go to 7-11, it talks about what the dealers should do. Do you know? All right, let me quickly go through that and then we'll take a short break. Dealer is slowing everything down. Dealer is going to try to close the count at 31. On a middle card lead, if the dealer has a choice, he'll skip the 15. He'll make the count 17. If you laid a 7 and the dealer's got an 8, you make the count 17. What do you do then? You make the count 23. Dealer says 31. Happens all the time. Good play by the dealer. He didn't take 2 to give up 3. The idea is the dealer is trying to slow the game down, not trying to speed it up for you. So very, very often that on those middle cards, it's dealer doesn't need the pegs, and it'll come out better in terms of the pegging to skip that first 15. Already mentioned the 5 and the 6. Keep that in mind. You'll like how that works. If you've been used to just taking the 15 with the 5 and you're playing defense, put the 6 on the 10 lead. And then close the count with the 5. Greatest close the count. Single 5 especially. Dump it. Got 31 for 2. Didn't have to give up nothing to get there. Great play for the dealer. On the back of that page, well, actually, I've done a pretty good job of covering that already, but when you get a chance, kind of read through that. I'll give you a few minutes when I come off for a break. 42% of all games, that's almost half of them, are decided on the 9th deal. And the last paragraph down there talks about how to keep track of who's got the deal, odd numbered, even numbered. The player that had the first deal has all the odd deals in the game, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And the non-dealer of hand number 1 has deal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 maybe. Questions? Let's take a little break and be back in about 8 minutes.